Hey everybody, if you're seeing this video, well, that means Sean is hard at work editing our next video. In the meantime though, I, Giraffe Sean, want to share a fireside story with you all. Fair warning, this is a tale that will shock you. It's a horror folk tale that has been passed down from generation to generation, and, well, nobody really knows where it originated. I know this is very different from our normal videos, but sometimes you gotta chase your muse and try something new every once in a while. If you enjoy it, let me know down in the comments. Also, just as a heads up to those of you who come to this channel for comfort and chill vibes, if it isn't clear enough already, this is a super spooky story and it doesn't have any chill vibes whatsoever, so if you're not into that, please turn back now, and be sure to come back in a few days for a really cool nostalgic walk down memory lane. I'm probably gonna end up putting the rest of these on a second channel, but this one is gonna live here for now. Welcome everybody to Fireside Tales with Giraffe Sean. This tale is called Let Me Out. Rain pelted against the windshield as Spencer squinted toward the darkness ahead of him. He had been driving for hours now on a desolate highway in what felt like the middle of nowhere. The trees looming like sentinels on either side, their branches swaying in the gusting wind. The old Toyota's headlights flickered for a brief moment, sending a shiver of panic through his entire body. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel and glanced towards his wife, Tara, who sat in the passenger seat in a peaceful slumber. Her beautiful face, soft in the dim glow, was a cherished comfort. "Almost there," Spencer whispered to himself, hoping to conjure some reassurance more than anything. They were on their way to a secluded cabin they had rented for a quiet weekend away from the city. It had been a really long and stressful week, and the peaceful isolation was supposed to be the perfect remedy to their mutual crippling burnout. But as the storm worsened, the peace he'd imagined began to feel more like a trap. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the road ahead, and just for a moment, Spencer saw a figure standing in the middle of the street, drenched and motionless. He slammed on the brakes, the tires screeching on the wet asphalt as the car skidded to a halt. Heart pounding, his eyes darted back and forth, searching in the darkness, but the figure was gone. "Did you see that?" Spencer asked, breathless. Tara sat shaken and pale as a ghost next to him. "There was someone standing right there in the road." He pointed into the darkness, though it was clear to both him and Tara that whatever it was is now gone. Tara sat up, rubbing her eyes. "I didn't see anything. Maybe it was just the storm." Spencer shook his head. He knew what he had seen, but the longer he stared, the more doubt seemed to creep in, slowly overtaking his confidence. Had it been a trick of the light? The rain? He didn't want to seem paranoid, so he forced a chuckle. "Yeah, must have been." He started the car again, trying desperately to push the thoughts of what he saw to the back of his mind. The cabin wasn't far now. They arrived at the cabin just past midnight. The rain had let up slightly, but the sky remained thick with clouds, swallowing any light from the moon. The cabin was old but charming, tucked deep in the woods with a single flickering porch light casting a weak glow on the rickety wooden front steps. Tara yawned and stretched. "I'll grab the bags. You get the key." Spencer fumbled in his pocket for the cabin's key, feeling uneasy again as the trees around them seemed to shift and whisper with the wind, almost as if they were taunting him. He quickly unlocked the door and flicked on the light inside. The interior was warm and welcoming, with a beautifully crafted stone fireplace, thick wooden beams overhead, and it was all brought together by old worn furniture that reminded Spencer of his childhood house growing up in the 90s. It was everything the listing had promised: rustic, cozy, and isolated. But something felt off. The air was heavy, almost oppressive, and there was an odd smell, faint but unmistakable, something metallic. The pit growing in Spencer's stomach had widened to a gaping maw, but still he tried to push the worrying thoughts to the back of his mind. "Do you smell that?" Tara asked, wrinkling her nose as she stepped inside. Spencer nodded silently, walking further into the cabin. The smell seemed stronger near the kitchen, where, according to the listing, there was a trap door that led down to the basement that was meant to be off limits. The smell of rust. Or was it something else? Blood? His stomach turned and he shook his head. "It's probably just damp. I bet this place hasn't been used in a while." Tara seemed to shrug it off easily, dropping the bags near the old couch. "I'm just too tired to care. Let's get some sleep." They settled into the lone, small bedroom at the back of the cabin. As Spencer lay in the stiff bed, listening to the rain pattering on the roof and struggling to drift away to sleep, his mind wandered back to the figure in the road. He couldn't stop thinking about it. He couldn't shake the feeling that there had been something off about the figure, something unnervingly still, as if it hadn't been human at all. It almost seemed as if the figure was a dark mannequin in the shadows, trying its best to be as human as possible, but even in the cover of the night, anyone with eyes could tell that something about it was uncanny. A little less than an hour later, he drifted off into a restless sleep, haunted by images of shadowy figures and flickering lights. It wasn't long before a loud bang jolted Spencer awake. He shot up in bed, heart nearly beating out of his chest. The room around him was pitch black, save for the faint glow of the storm outside of the window. Tara stirred beside him, but didn't wake. For a moment, Spencer held his breath, listening intently. There it was again, a scraping sound, like something heavy being dragged across the old wooden floor. Slowly and methodically, Spencer slipped out of bed and crept towards the door. He peeked out into the dark hallway, realizing quickly that there was no hope of seeing anything down this pitch-black corridor. He flicked the hallway light on as he proceeded forward to the den, ensuring to click on each light along the way. The entire house was eerily silent, but it only took a few seconds before the scraping sound came again. This time, louder than before, and from the direction of the basement. Spencer swallowed hard. This was stupid, and he knew it. There was no way he was going to investigate some creepy basement in the middle of the night. But the noise persisted, relentless, tenacious, almost as if it were ominously calling him toward the trap door like a twisted siren, singing to lure in a lascivious sailor searching for trouble in the night. Spencer made his way toward the kitchen, where he grabbed a flashlight from the junk drawer and, with trembling hands, he walked toward the corner where the trapdoor sat waiting for him. He slowly reached forward and lifted the old decaying wooden door. The old rusty hinges seemed to scream in agony as they opened, revealing a set of narrow wooden stairs descending into nothing but pure darkness. The smell was stronger than ever, a pungent mix of damp earth and rot. Against his better judgment, Spencer immediately began to descend the stairs, his flashlight beam cutting through the thick shadows. He knew he shouldn't be doing this, let alone doing it by himself, but he just couldn't seem to fight the charming allure of the darkness below calling him. The basement was cold, with low ceilings and stone walls. More old furniture was stacked haphazardly in one corner, and in another, there were shelves lined with jars and boxes covered in years' worth of dust. Spencer continued forward cautiously, trying his best to illuminate every pocket of darkness with his flashlight, which seemed an impossible task. The measly flashlight he found didn't stand a chance against the thick, dusty darkness that surrounded him. As he continued to desperately search for something, anything in the darkness, a shock darted through his body, and in the moment, he could have swore he felt his heart skip a handful of beats. Before him, Spencer laid his eyes upon a dark figure hunched over in the far corner, dragging something across the floor. "Who's there?" Spencer called, his voice trembling. The figure stopped dead in its tracks, slowly turning to face him. In the minuscule beam from the flashlight, Spencer saw a face. Not of a person, but something twisted and deformed. Its pale skin stretched over sharp bones. Its eyes were hollow, black pits of darkness. Spencer stumbled backward in shock, nearly dropping the only lifeline separating him from being enshrouded in total darkness. The figure stood up, impossibly tall now for what were previously very low ceilings, towering over him as it took a step forward. Suddenly, there was a scream, a high, blood-curdling scream that pierced the silence. But it wasn't coming from Spencer. It was Tara. Spencer turned and bolted up the stairs, the creature's heavy footsteps echoing behind him. He slammed the trapdoor shut and ran into the bedroom where Tara was sitting up in bed, pale and trembling. "Spencer, what's going on?" she asked, her voice shaking. "We need to get out of here," he panted. "Now!" But before they could move, the lights in the cabin flickered and went out. The entire cabin was plunged into darkness. Then they heard a sound that they would never forget. A slow, deliberate knock at the front door. Spencer felt his blood run cold. There was no one else out here. No neighbors, no passing cars, nothing. Nothing but the forest and the storm. The knocking continued, louder and more insistent. "We have to leave," Tara whispered, grabbing his arm. "Spencer, we have to go." Tara shot out of bed as she and Spencer made their way toward the door, haunted by the insistent knocking. But when Spencer reached for the doorknob, it wouldn't budge. Somehow, the door was locked from the outside. Suddenly, the knocking stopped just as abruptly as it had started. For a brief moment that felt longer than an entire lifetime, silence hung in the air like a weight. Then, from the other side of the door, came a voice, soft and whispering. "Let me in." Spencer felt his knees go weak. His heart sank as low as it could, as its former home in his chest was replaced with a deep void of dread, doubt, and fear. He knew this voice. All it took was 3 words in a whisper, and he knew exactly who it was. It was a voice he had heard hundreds of times, a voice that would often bring him comfort and content. However, in this moment, it brought an overwhelming sense of despair. It was the unmistakable voice of his wife, Tara. Yet, she stood right beside him, trembling in the darkness. The whisper came again, clear as day this time. "Let me in, Spencer. It's cold out here." His mind reeled. How could it sound so much like her? His body tensed, unsure of whether he was still in reality or the grip of a nightmare. Suddenly, Spencer heard the all-too-familiar scream of the hinges from the trap door to the basement bursting open. The thing was coming up the stairs, and he could feel its presence approaching rapidly. Tara screamed in fear, pulling him towards the back door. The two raced through the kitchen, but as Spencer reached for the handle, the back door too wouldn't budge. No matter how hard he pulled, it stayed sealed shut, as if the house itself had come alive and trapped them within its walls. In that dreadful moment of hopelessness, they heard from behind them the soft creak of footsteps. They turned slowly, and there, standing in the hallway, was Tara. Another Tara. Her face was pale, her eyes dark and cold. The real Tara gasped, clutching Spencer's arm. "Spencer, that's not me." The thing that wore her face took a step closer, smiling a forced grin unlike any that Spencer had ever seen. Spencer backed away, the world spinning around him, while his mind was spinning twice as fast in the opposite direction. He didn't know which one to believe. Then, suddenly, the lights flickered back on, and Spencer felt more hopeless than ever. He looked around, taking in his surroundings, and realizing that they were no longer in their cozy cabin. The walls around them had completely changed, the wooden beams now rotting and covered in strange symbols that he had never seen before. It was as if the house had transformed. The thing that looked like Tara smiled even wider. "This place, it's hungry." Suddenly the back door behind them creaked open. However, it didn't reveal the safe haven outside that they had hoped for. Instead, it revealed an endless, dark abyss. Before they can even think to react, the fake Tara lunged at them, her skin peeling away, revealing monstrous wounds of rotting flesh underneath. Spencer grabbed Tara's hand, pulling her toward the door. The thing followed, its hollow eyes gleaming wantingly. Spencer and Tara stumbled forward, just as the door slammed shut behind them, plunging them into complete darkness. Their hopes for freedom had been completely demolished in an instant. They had fallen deeper into the house's trap. In a different timeline, maybe they had escaped to the dark wilderness, got into their car, and raced into the night, heading anywhere but here. However, in this reality, the house was in control. The two stood in the darkness as a single light flickered on, revealing that the back door, which was supposed to be their escape, led them to a dark stone room, similar to that of the basement where Spencer had found himself face to face with the tall, dark figure not long before. Just like last time, it wasn't long before Spencer realized that they were no longer alone. In the corner of the room, huddled in shadow, were dozens of figures, all with hollow eyes. Not panicked. As a matter of fact, nearly expressionless. There was no fear. There was no happiness. Just a complete and utter sense of apathy. They had been here before, and now, so had Spencer and Tara. Moments later, Spencer's entire sense of reality would be plunged out the window. The only thing that he clung to for comfort in this dark abyss of nothing but fear and uncertainty would be ripped away from him completely. His entire world reduced to nothing but doubt in a matter of seconds, at so little as the whisper of 4 words. But the whispering wasn't just coming from anywhere. It was from the direction of the huddled group in the corner. It was completely unmistakable. He knew exactly what he was hearing. None other than Tara's voice, whispering, "Spencer, let me out." But she was standing right beside him. He began to rethink everything the two had been through since they arrived at the cabin. He mentally relived every single moment that they had spent there together, but more importantly, the short moments where they were apart. Spencer's entire mental well-being was violently shaken in a sea of panic, trapped in the jaws of a monster that little did he know would never rest. And on that note, you guys, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this one and you would like part 2, let me know in the comments. Have a happy Halloween, my friends.